Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about another social psychology concept. It's called framing, and we'll see how different social issues can be framed in different ways, and you might not be surprised that the different political parties frame social issues in different ways. Now, how are we going to define framing? Here are some taken from the literature. Frames are organizing principles that are socially shared and persistent over time, that work symbolically to meaningfully structure the social world. It's a mouthful. To frame is to select some aspects of a perceived reality and make them more salient in a communicating text. The frame suggests what the controversy is about, the essence of the issue. Here's a nice simple one down here. Frames are interpretive packages that give meaning to an issue. Now, since journalists are in the business of presenting the world to us, they are in a position to frame news stories, right? So how they choose to deliver the news is a choice of frame, and that's going to influence how we interpret the news. And here are some of the tools, the tricks of the trade. You know, they choose what kind of angle you're going to take on the story, selecting the sources of the story, formulating the headline, summing up the main point, choosing the right picture, etc. So there are many examples of how different newspapers or different news shows, Fox News, MSNBC, they're framing stories in different ways, influencing how their audience is going to interpret whatever story it is. Here are some examples of frames from the recent past. Take the war in Iraq. You can have the occupation frame, where the story is framing the war as an occupation, right? Of course, the people in Iraq would have been embracing that frame, right? That would have resonated with them, versus the war against terror frame, right? That would be a different type of frame. What about a factory closing down, maybe shipping overseas? You could have the economic necessity frame, right? The factory owners are saying, hey, global competition, got to send the factory overseas, right? Versus the social responsibility or the employment frame, right? Maybe the workers are saying, no, you didn't have to close the factory, right? We could have reduced wages a little bit, keep the jobs in town, but no, the owners were greedy and they wanted, more profit, and so, so there's that type of frame. Climate change. The environmental protection frame versus the regulation equals job loss frame, right? So some news stories are going to be talking about climate change from an environmental point of view. Must reduce carbon emissions in order to prevent the earth from heating up, right? Other news stories are going to look at climate change policy as bad for business, right? So it's going to harm the economy. And again, the political parties tend to take different frames here. The environmental protection, a more liberal frame; a conservative frame, the regulation frame. The housing crisis, failure of individual responsibility, or was it a failure of bank regulation, right? So here the conservatives tend to frame the story this way. The liberals tend to frame the story that way. Welfare, is it government assistance, as the liberals tend to say, or is it government handout, as conservatives tend to say, right? So political parties are framing issues in different ways, and that is inviting a different interpretation of what the issue is all about.